Welcome to Digital Transformation Bite Size. In this series, what we're going to do is meet people who are in the digital transformation space, but these are people who have a lot of experience and really know what they're talking about. We're going to spend the next couple of minutes asking them a variety of questions just so you get to learn a little bit more about them and a little bit more about the digital transformation space so that you can make the right decision when it comes to technology, tooling, and people and everything else. And today I'm delighted to invite Lasse to have a conversation with me. This is my first interview, so hopefully, Lasse, it's relatively painless for both of us. Welcome today, sir. How are you?
Thank you, Kieran. I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me for this. I'm really happy to do it with you, and also to be the first guest is nice.
So question, Lasse, you're a chief digital officer, but you weren't always thus. You were a history degree and a history master's student. What got you to change between the two?
Well, I think sometimes, it's about, I think Chris Rock says it in a show. He says, you're told you can be anything you want to be, but really you can be what you're good at when they're hiring. And to some extent that happened for me. I had some student jobs in administration and everything, and it just moved from there. And I always ask questions. I always dive deeper. I always want to know more, get more influence. So it's basically just taken on from there. And then, digital happened. Everything's digital. And if you have the logics to it, it just works out that way. For me, at least it did.
I like it's amazing. Everybody runs in life to work out, I want to be this, I want to be that, but always find the careers that suit you best, find you. Everybody in emerging tech space, if we can call it that, keeps talking about digital transformation and AI and robotics and RPA, but have they actually forgotten the D, as in the data? What should they be looking at? Is it the data? Is it the process? Is it the technology? What's the most important thing?
Well, I had a chat with someone the other day also discussing that, the RPA, right? I think it was actually Horses for Sources, where she said she was happy she didn't put the R in RPA, and I was like, yeah, but I wouldn't either have put the P in RPA. So it's just we have automation. That's where we'll end, right? For me, the point being that I think it's not robotic. It's not about processes. It's about data. It's about you have data in containers. They're stored in these big ERP systems of the previous revolution. You had the ERP revolution of the late 90s and the early noughties, still going on in some parts of the world, I'm pretty sure. But this is basically putting everything into digital artifacts, digital documents, digital databases, big systems that sort of move between the entire enterprise, across the entire enterprise for different things like CRM systems, financial systems, all these things, right? You have these silos. And what we then did after that, after getting things digital artifacts, we still moved them manually. So we clicked around, moved it manually, put it into Excel, put something else into Excel, make a report, consolidate it, control it. What we're seeing now is that this thing, we could call it analog 1.0 to digital 1.0, or whatever you want to call it, where you got manual work, digital artifacts. Now we're seeing a push to make digital work on digital artifacts. So we're basically just taking the next step in that. And I think that is what you need to keep in mind, that it's all about moving data. So you need to remember, what are we trying to achieve with this? And I think maybe I got onto this one. I was who was it who said that? I never remember the name. It was from Gartner, saying that RPA is the digital dream for the legacy nightmares, right? Who was that, Kieran? You know,
I can't remember, but it's.
I can't.
I wish I'd have said it sometimes.
Yeah, it's a really good one, but it got me thinking, that is that all it is? And I realized, no, it's not. It's actually also about connecting to things you can't connect to. And then it got me on, what are you trying to connect to? Well, trying to connect to vendors, to clients, and to sub vendors, and to your public authorities. And then it sort of became this cross company architecture that became the enterprise architecture instead. And that's where, it all made sense to me. We're connecting systems. We're making sure that we can reach where we couldn't reach before and move it digitally. That's where RPA is really strong, as well as, the best of the worst solutions, the last solution you look at when nothing else moves. But it's all about that. It's all about getting the systems, knowing where they are, how they work, what interfaces do they have, and then connecting it based on what people are actually doing.
Wow. And what do you think is next for RPA then?
I think RPA will become, a commoditized tool in the toolbox. I don't think it will get further than that. I think it, to some extent, has run its course already as the big transformation eye opener. I think it's put a lot of things on the agenda, automation on the agenda for a lot of people, definitely. So people tried it out and seen, okay, we can actually do this. Okay, and then realized a couple of years later, okay, it didn't work very well through the interface, but we still want it automated. Where I am right now, when I joined 𝘀𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃, we had something like 35 processes in RPA, and I think we're down to 5 to 6 now, because so much of it has been moved into either BI or directly into MS Flow. We use Business Central, right? Because it could do all of that, and it's much more stable than RPA. So RPA was an eye opener in that sense, doing things that we couldn't do. I also think that RPA still has a big role to play in less digitalized countries than Denmark and the Nordics. We're very digital here. We have had like digital public mailboxes for 10 years. We've been really aggressive in digital transformation as a society in Denmark, meaning that the shock of COVID has not hit us as hard as other places where they have paper. I think what we're going to see is RPA become a commoditized tool native to the organization, but as the last solution.
It's interesting because I have to say, practicing in this industry, thank goodness for RPA, or at least the furore around it, because it's really driven the conversation around automation and digital transformation.
Yeah.
You know, organizations weren't focused on it before. So worst case, if it is the worst case last tool, then fantastic, you know, to some degree, everybody's now talking about this and realizes what can happen. But what do you think is, or let's say, what is automation and what does it mean to digitally transform?
Well, it means I think actually what it means, digital transformation is a strategic initiative. And as such, you'll need to attach not only your CEOs and CFOs saying, yeah, we want to digitally transform, but you need to, of course, attach your CIO to it. And in the CIO domain, strategic considerations belongs to the enterprise architect. And this is a lack in every organization, having an enterprise architect skilled in both your TOGAFs and your Archimates and everything else, and basically drawing up what's there, what's on, what capabilities do we have, what activities are we doing, what systems are we working in, and getting that overview of what is there now. You need to know what is there now to be able to move it into the future. And actually, this is also the slogan of 𝘀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, now for tomorrow. I like that. I like that now. I thought it was weird at first when they launched it, but I really like it because I believe in it. You have to know what's there, and then you can draw the lines of what should be later. So for me, it's all about getting the strategic overview so you could make it a reflective decision on how you sort of connect it and automate it. Automation is, and I need to say this, right? Automation is what everything IT is all about. IT has always been automation. There's nothing new to it, except if you sort of conceptualize it the way I said before, where you move manual work on digital objects. But digital objects in themselves, ERP systems, if you have any clue how much work they have automated, just the ERP systems, it's immense. It's crazy. Excel, I think I heard that in the 90s, Excel was directly resulted in more than 20,000 people being laid off in the banking industry in Denmark, or moved into different roles, right? That's a lot of people. We never talk about that. No one does an ROI on Excel, or it doesn't work that way, right? So some things just become native, and I think automation will be native in the same vein. And I think for RPA, it will have that role as well in that portfolio of tools that we automate with. Was that a good enough answer for your question?
I like that, actually. I like it because it's interesting, because we could probably pick parts of that apart, because you sort of go, what is IT for?
Yeah.
And I don't know if IT is for automation as such. I have a slight twist on that, which is, there's a business, the business has got a mission, and everybody plays their part. And part of IT's will be to automate some of the solutions and systems to allow organizations to achieve their objective. But I kind of like my IT department set up, to deliver the nuts and bolts. Everybody just works and they just find it fantastic. They bring new product into the enterprise so everybody can do things better, smarter, cleaner, faster than before. They teach us about, as you said a moment ago, the now, but also tomorrow. So how do we work and behave and operate differently? How do we collaborate differently? How do we drive new value as well?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of business partner I want to see in my IT team. But that said, I want to see it in my HR team as well. They ought to be leading on change management and cultural transformation, and also getting people ready to move forward in the business. So I'm a little bit of, everybody should be digital. IT in particular should be providing platform systems, tech, and everything else. And everybody ought to be rowing in the same direction. So again, you and I will have beers and coffee when all this madness is over, and we can have about 9 hours of conversation.
And that's the
and
point,
solve
right,
the
Kieran? That's the point. You need your enterprise architect to sort of say what tools can we give them to move with, right? And then be not just investing in an RPA setup. That's the point. The people are still investing in that, setting that up as this is what we automate with. You need to have a broader outlook for your automation setup. That's the point. And also saying that IT, I want to say, what does it mean? Like Horses for Sources actually saying right now with making it native, right? That's the point. What does that mean? Well, just look at your ERP system. It is native. No one could imagine a world without it. Everyone's logging into it. It's just there. It wasn't just there 25 years ago. And that's the thing we need to see with automation as well, that it's become something that's so commoditized internally in the organization that you just go to your IT organization and say, hey, I want to automate this way. I know what I want to do with it, how it works. I can also envision the logics, the IT logic. That's what I want people. I don't want citizen developers, but I want citizen preachers and citizen evangelists. I want people who can understand how this could be turned into a digital automated process, into IT, and then go into IT, say, I want this, and they just say, yeah, good, we have it set up, boom, boom, it's done, bam. Doesn't take forever. It just moves like that. That's the point.
I kind of like that, but I want citizen everybody using all of the technology. I think it's sometimes a little bit unfair to expect our IT colleagues to have all the answers, but by goodness, they ought to have many. They ought to have many. How does someone become a chief data officer?
A chief data officer or chief digital officer? What do you want?
We talked a moment ago about data and about data being the key thing in the organization. In other words, robotics just move stuff around. So give me an answer. How do you become a chief data officer? How do you become a chief digital officer?
Well, that's about your titles, right? That's your negotiation power. What you say you want to be, right? To some extent. No, but I think for me, it's about being nosy and inquisitive, and a little bit aggressive as well on not taking anything for granted. I've been in so many situations where people have taken the system for granted all the time, and they've seen, we have the system, it cannot be evolved to something else, and they think sort of the system, the ERP system becomes God. This is just, it is given by God, it's there, we can't change it, but the developers are sitting just next door, and they could just change whatever they want to do in it. And I think getting that awareness and being aggressive on that, I think it's very much an aggressive sales strategy. You're selling to your internal employees, you're selling to your executives all the time. But you're not just concerned with the servers, you're concerned with the interaction between the systems, what people are actually working on. And that's where it gets to, look like process, right? And it is processes, of course it is, but I just think the process is a bad pitch because people don't know what they're talking about, but you have to be really inquisitive about that, and you have to have an idea about what you can do.
Should there always be a focus on the data, not the process, not the technology?
I think you should definitely always have a focus on the data and then decide the technology on top of that, basically. But the data always this sort of decides what you can do, how you interact with your data, how you get your data, what data you're working on. That decides what tool you need to use. But a lot of these suites are becoming much more wide. They can enact so many different technologies and start them off, trigger so many technologies, and that's what we're seeing in the low-code space at the moment as well. That this will just keep growing. That you get more and more pre-built low-code connectors and blocks for moving all sorts of data in all sorts of ways. And RPA is becoming, and this is really important, and to everyone IPOing out there in the RPA world, RPA is just becoming a small part of that portfolio right now. That's what's happening. And if you look at the data, you always find a solution in these suites, I think, like the Power Platform suite from Microsoft. It has all of it. It has both a BI solution, it has a RPA solution, it has a workflow solution, it has a low-code application front-end solution. If you have those things in your portfolio, you can move with any kind of data, but you need to know where is the data and talk about the systems that have the data. Ask people, what are you logging into? And then you'll get to the processes. And then you also get to the clear-cut processes that you can actually automate easy peasy. It's about integration, right?
What technologies excite you the most?
I want to say BPMs because there is no end to the possibilities and application methods for that in not just the top enterprise, but also in the deep SMB market. And if we want to make a digital transformation, and this is really key for me, Kieran. Okay, this is important for me. Every single book you have, I have some here, and I have other books as well around that digital transformation. They always talk about one company doing a digital transformation, always the enterprise doing, always the big enterprise like Procter & Gamble, like Walmart, like whatever you have. They're transforming internally. You know, oh, now we're digital transform. But what about the sub vendor who has to interact with it? They have to just interact with whatever digital transformation thing they did here, right? And they're just sort of, you know, left over like, okay, now we have to interact with you and these other 5 big companies who also did transform because they're our clients, all of them, right? So for me, it's really important to say that as opposed to the revolutions, you know, the industrial revolutions with the car replacing the horse cart,
Carriage.
right?
Horse
Carriage, yeah, carriage. Sorry. At that time, when you had sort of, you know, a carriage business and you were driving people around town, you could sort of replace that with a car, and then you were transformed into the new industrial revolution. You are now revolutionized, right? But in the digital transformation, in the digital revolution, you have to know that this is not enough. Everything has to transform. You cannot, that's why you see Spotify, that's why you see Google having RPA, because they have to interact with public authorities. They have to interact with vendors and clients who have crappy systems, right? It's a societal thing. Everyone has to be able to connect on every multiple way all the time. And we need to consider that when we do our digital transformations, that how do we open up towards the world in the most standard way? And that's why I think the PPM solutions are super important. And also, to some extent, you know, I'm super excited about, and it sounds like I'm just talking Microsoft, but Microsoft is so big, so influential, so much out there, but them investing so much money in the Power Platform and building up to the capabilities it has right now is a really strong strategic sign that this is what's going to change the world. It means something, and I think it will mean something, because every company I work with, even the smallest one, they have an O365, right? Now you can just click, add on, just in my mailbox, you can just add on Microsoft Flow. That's like super powerful. Yep. And just telling that message to people, that's what I'm doing all the time. You have any clue the power at your fingertips, just going in there, you have that?
I should say out loud, other technologies are available and do a politically correct broadcast, but I do like the tech as well. I see. Thank you so much indeed. You and I could talk for hours. I think 3, 7, 9, 10, 40 minutes on YouTube, LinkedIn, or whatever else would not be enough for us. Sir, thank you so much indeed. I appreciate all your help and advices. And everybody who's listening today, if you would like to reach out to myself or Lasse, please find us on LinkedIn. We'd be more than happy to engage. There's a wonderful community in the digital transformation space. Everybody is really open, transparent, and shares with each other. Please join in. And if you do jump in, share what knowledge you've got. Thank you so much indeed, Lasse. Have a great day.
Thank you, Kieran.